Hey, what's up, everybody? It's just Charles, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and when we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we have another interesting episode for you guys, so hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video if you haven't already. Now, this season, there were so many stories surrounding this Brooklyn Nets team. So many stories. Is Kyrie going to play? Is James Harden happy? Are they going to lift the bet? There were so many different storylines, and we all know, or we all knew that going into the playoffs, this Nets team, although they were or are a number 7 seed, they're not a conventional number 7. That team is about a number 3, maybe a top 4 seed, masquerading as a bottom seed in the Eastern Conference. Why do I say this? Because before Kevin Durant got injured early in the season, Kevin Durant, whether James Harden was in and out of the lineup or Kyrie Irving was not playing or not, he had that Brooklyn Nets team with the best record in the Eastern Conference, with the number 1 record in the Eastern Conference. So the Brooklyn Nets were a good team. And mind you, they're doing all of this. I didn't see LaMarcus Aldridge play any minutes last night, and I think they're missing Joe Harris, right? One of their 3-point snipers, on that team. So the Brooklyn Nets are a really good team, and it's one of the reasons I believe that Charles Barkley about a week ago was on NBA on TNT, and he was very, very high on this Brooklyn Nets team. So what we want to do is play a little bit of his comments that he just made about less than a week ago, or about a week ago. Then we're going to come back and react to it. So take a listen to some of the things that Charles Barkley had to say about the Brooklyn Nets just about a week ago. Take a listen to that.
Brooklyn, to me, in every series, unless, you take Giannis away, Joel Embiid, Jason Tatum, Brooklyn gonna have the 2 best players in every series. Yes. After other than those 3 guys I mentioned, they gonna have the 2 best players. But if they played Miami, they'd have the 2 best players on the team. Milwaukee, like I say, other than Giannis and Embiid and Jason Tatum, they're gonna have the 2 best players in every series. So they got a chance.
No, they do have a chance.
Yeah, they got a chance. So I would not want to play Brooklyn personally because they're the best.
You think that's what Bud was doing today?
It seems like it. It seems like it. Because but like I say, man, the Brooklyn team is scary, especially with Drummond coming off the bench. But Kyrie and Kevin are the 2, in my opinion. Giannis is the best player in the league. I agree with you. But the 2 best unstoppable one-on-one players in the NBA today are Kyrie Irving and Giannis. Excuse me, and KD. They can single-handedly win 4 games out of 7.
So that's how Charles Barkley was feeling about the Brooklyn Nets just about a week ago, right? And I think those sentiments he expressed were legit. However, there's a fundamental difference here. When he was making those comments, he was referring to the Nets playing against the Bucks, not the Celtics. At the time, I believe the Bucks were the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. But going into the playoffs, the Boston Celtics are the number 2 seed, facing the Brooklyn Nets as a number 7 seed. And yesterday after game 1, he had some very interesting things to say, and it sounded like as if he changed his tune. So before we go too far, we want to play what he said yesterday, because that's really what we want to focus on in this particular video here. So we're going to play some of his comments after game 1, the Nets versus Celtics, when he was reacting to it. Then we're going to come back and really give you guys our thoughts. So take a listen to that.
And to pick it back on Kenny's point, the reason a guy instead of 14 gets 20, because they're shading everything toward Tatum and Brown. So there's only 6 points, but because Tatum and Brown, they had a good game, but this dude done had 50, 60 points. I think the difference is you go back to the play-in game. You look at the game today. I've said this, I said this team can't win the championship because I don't think those guys, I don't know what's going to happen.
What are you talking about, Brooklyn?
Brooklyn.
Okay.
Like I say, those guys both played fantastic against Cleveland, and it was still a 6-point game with 3-4 minutes to go. Can they have 4 perfect games? You see today, one guy was amazing. The other guy had a little subpar game, and they lost. And that's why I think those 2 guys have to play great. One of them can't play great. They both have to play great. And I thought you saw a perfect example of that today, to be honest with you.
Now, I think Charles Barkley makes some very good points, right? I think he makes some very good points. I think the key difference between this particular iteration of this Nets team is this. Originally, when they had Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, there was no way you could see a scenario in which on a given night, 2 of those 3 stars would be off. Usually, what you would expect is on a given night, maybe 1 out of those 3 players would be off, can have an off night. And because of that, the other guy would be able to pick up the slack. So it's still like you're playing one of the top duos in the NBA. So if Kyrie Irving has a bad night and what is his name? And James Harden has a decent night and Kevin Durant has a great night, you're still facing basically, a dynamic duo. In this particular case, that is not the case. What you have now with the Brooklyn Nets is this. You have Kyrie Irving, who is an offensive wizard, who reminds me a lot of Kobe Bryant. And I think Kyrie Irving is pretty much patting his game after Kobe Bryant, and he's a Kobe Bryant fan, or disciple, or whatever you want to call it. So you have Kyrie Irving with extreme offensive capabilities, and you have Kevin Durant. But what happened in Game 1? What happened in Game 1 was this. One of their big stars, one of their 2 big players, or one of their dynamic duo, had an off night. Kevin Durant, think about this. Kevin freaking Durant was held to 20% shooting in the first half, and he had 4 turnovers. Think about who I just mentioned. I'm talking about Kevin freaking Durant. For the game, he shot 37.5% and had 6 turnovers. When was the last time in an NBA game you saw Kevin freaking Durant, shoot under 40%? I cannot remember the game. I think if Kevin Durant shot under 40%, it would be because he was just, throwing the ball at the backboard and they call it a shot attempt. I think he would have to try to shoot that poorly. He's way too talented, way too skilled. And when Charles Barkley said, that's in that second soundbite, he said, they will need to have 4 perfect games in a series to win. I think he brings up a legitimate concern. A legitimate concern, because it puts a lot of pressure on those star players. And to add to that, they are also playing against a Boston defense that is the best, that is the number 1 ranked defense in the entire NBA. And you saw that yesterday. They were crowding them. There was constant ball pressure. Those Boston defenders were always moving their feet, and they were also putting pressure on them on the defensive side of the floor. It wasn't like as if they were just there getting stops and just running their normal sets. No, a lot of the times they were trying to push the pace and push the ball down their throats. And a lot of times they were successful with that. That is the first major takeaway. And that is something that the Brooklyn Nets did not have to face when they played against Cleveland. There was no player on that Cleveland Cavaliers roster that could score 40 or 50 points at any given moment, let alone 2. Right? Let alone 2. I think Jaylen Brown can do that, and certainly Jason Tatum can do that. They did not have that, so they could the Nets players could essentially just rest on defense. That's the first thing. The second thing is something that was mentioned all throughout the game if you watched the game live, which was the size comparison. I think Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy were talking about that. Listen, the Nets don't have enough size as we speak to contend with the Boston Celtics, and I'll tell you why. The Brooklyn Nets were out-rebounded in that game by 14. Think about that. 14 rebounds. I think the Boston Celtics had 43, and the Nets had 29 rebounds. That's the first thing. The Boston Celtics had, think about this, 14 offensive rebounds to the Nets 5. Do you know what that translates into? Although the Boston Celtics won that game by 1 point, guess what? They ended up attempting 11 more shots in the game overall. Their offensive rebounding and defensive rebounding actually allowed them to limit some of the possessions that the Brooklyn Nets had because they attempted 11 less shots. And the offensive rebounding helped them attempt 11 more shots. You give yourself 11 more opportunities to score. Chances are you're going to score. And in this case, they needed just 1 additional bucket and they won the game. That's exactly what happened. So listen, I think this Brooklyn Nets, I think it's going to be a long series. I'm picking the Boston Celtics to win. The Boston Celtics to win this series in 7 games. But it's going to be a tough one, and I think a lot of people need to start looking at, the various dynamics of this series and stop looking at just Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. It's not that simple, right? There's a lot of things happening out there, and what I just mentioned about the rebounding and the size difference is also going to play a role. So these are my thoughts and opinions. What I want to know from you guys is, do you think that Charles Barkley has a point? And, what do you think about some of the things that we said in this video? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. Again, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. We'll catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.